This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. Welcome to season 6 of The Pass, BT. Didn't think we'd get here, but here we are. Show going a bit of a different direction, as you may have noticed near the end of season 5. Sports is still a thing, but not as much. You'll get more information about what's going on in the tech world, what's going on in the music world. We actually have kind of gotten rid of Ass of the Week. Once in a while, you may get one here and there, but I still want to stick with the main gist of passing the message to you all. So take your time, but don't waste your time as you sit and enjoy a new season of The Pass with your host, BT. What's going on, y'all? How's everyone doing? Episode 358 of The Pass is here. I'm your host, BT, with yet another episode, and I will go ahead and let you all know in advance you will be getting 2 episodes this week because my recording that I did last week did not get uploaded, and I'll talk about why, as well as kind of give just my weekly update, weekly check-in. So my recording this week is going to be a little different. Normally when I'm doing these recordings, it's usually, okay, I just woke up, I rolled over, and we're going to do a podcast. I thought of doing that this morning, and then I sat and I was like, do I really want to go that route? Do I really want to stick with that plan? And I was like, nah, let's kind of go traditional. So I initially had packed up as if I was going to go to, like, somewhere and hang out, unwind, unplug. But then in the process, I was like, well, since I'm out, I had a plan that was supposed to happen today, but that got rescheduled. So I was like, well, let me just take it back to where it all started. And if you've been following the podcast for a while, most people know I always talk about how one of my favorite places to record podcasts is at the library. And there's a particular library in Henrico that I go to that I've grown to love, and I will be 100% honest. Anytime and every time that I've recorded here, it never misses. I know for a fact that I'm gonna have to do a little bit of recording cleanup because there's some background noise that I'm not accustomed to getting. But hey, as the saying goes, the show must go on. So we're gonna work through that, and we're gonna make this an amazing show. So the title kind of speaks for itself. I have began to acknowledge the importance of resetting. Anyone who's been on Clubhouse within the last year or two always knows, whenever you have a group of people in the room, you may start the room off with 3 or 4 people, and then you may turn around and it might be 20 people. So they'll say, all right, well, let's do a reset of the room and let's kind of go over everything and kind of break down where we were and what we're talking about, and then kind of engage a conversation from that. So this is kind of a reset, in a sense, a reset of the podcast, and also just a reset of life with what I have been accustomed to and things that I've been making changes for. I've talked about a little bit of it on the last episode, but in this episode, it'll be a little more unpacking, to say the least. So I want to say I talked about it, but if I haven't, I'll kind of give the update. When I recorded the show last Monday, like I said, you're going to hear both of them. They're both going to be uploaded back to back. After that show, later on that day, I did my first workout with my friend Kazi. So if you've listened to the podcast before, I've had Kazi on. You know him as Mark. He's been he's inadvertently been like the little big bro in a sense, because he's younger than me, but it's kind of like a bounce off of wisdom and almost an inadvertent reference of paying it forward. But he mainly has been like on me in a good way of just like, hey, making sure you're working out, making sure you're getting your stuff done. And most of this week has been just getting up in the morning, generating a habit and a routine of actually working out, which is different but also productive. I will add an update, which a lot of people would be like, I can't believe you're doing that, but I'm beginning to realize how important it is to set boundaries and set healthy habits. And one of those healthy habits, a healthy task that I've been doing lately is I've talked about it on the show before. Matter of fact, on episode 356, I first got made the announcement about the lockbox that I have for my phone. And what I'm doing, what I actually did today, and let me kind of backtrack a little bit. Yesterday, I went out to kind of just do a clear my head, reset, was going to work on some stuff, do some planning, organizing, stuff like that. Didn't really go as planned. I had set my phone to lock for like 2 hours. And I'm going to give this this will probably be a 2% tip, but an important thing to remember. If you purchase one of these phone lock boxes, set your phone on Do Not Disturb before you lock it away. The reason why is because if you don't, if anyone calls you, the phone will still ring as normal. And I had a call come in. I knew who the call was, so I went ahead and talked to him, which ironically enough, it consumed the entire time frame of the phone being locked away. But in hindsight, it was good that I did get to talk to the person because we hadn't talked in a while. We needed to kind of catch up, do our midweek or mid-month check-in a sense. So it was productive in that manner. So I'm not tripping at all. But yeah, if you do set your phone on Do Not Disturb, I mean, if you set it to be used for this lockbox, please do make sure you have it on Do Not Disturb before actually putting it away. So currently it is on Do Not Disturb. It is away, and it's like I said, I have it set for 2 hours. That's the time frame I have the room. Go ahead and give you an early heads up. This podcast is not going to be a 2-hour podcast, so don't even get if you're like, oh my God, he about to talk my head off for 2 hours. No, not the case. But I wanted to just bring that up first, leading into the kind of an overview of last week and just what's been new, what's been happening. Not going to give too many I'm going to give personal details, but I'm not going to give personal details, and I'll explain why in a moment. I have a resourceful yet transparent passing message that will hit home. And like I said, I'll get to that as well. So, like I said, I've found my new way of. I started working out. Had been in a gym with a trainer for the first time, and when I tell you the amount of learning curve that I had to do that, insane to say the least. Hang on one sec. Yeah, so I'm just gonna accept. I'm gonna rock it out. Y'all know how I do. Anyone that know me know I'm good at my craft, so I'm gonna do my traditional pod cleanup. But yeah, so the first workout was very. I understood the term of the meaning of raw feelings or raw emotions, and what I mean by that is I had to be vulnerable because I think I was so busy trying to not embarrass myself, but I needed to also realize that, bro, you just got to go in there and do it. And as I kind of let that layer down and as I was able to be more raw and authentic about it, and most importantly, being intentional, it made a big impact on the workout. And so the rest of the week, I did do a couple of like leg exercises and just kind of doing some squats just to kind of get my body back flowing and moving. And like I will admit, it wasn't too bad. Like getting the movement and the motion done on my end was no big deal. I know for a fact that it's gonna the the level is going to push up a notch today, which I'm okay with because I need that. So yeah, I'm prepared for that. Pretty excited. I've found a lot of videos that have been very inspiring, and one video has circled me back to something that I'm about to start doing again. And I'm gonna promote this, or I'm gonna share this in two forms. There is the in the I guess you can call it the option that's like more feasible, isn't going to be a financial burden, and the other option of just getting what's worth buying for what you need it for. I've rocked with both. I've found that the first is not. It's convenient, but I'm gonna talk about it all and then kind of go into why this is important. Everyone who's anyone, and it's ironic of me just talking about locking the phone away. You find yourself on your phone doing things, but not doing the things that you need to do. We've all been down that road. It happens. However, the problem becomes if you're using it to do what you are finding beneficial, and there are things that you could be doing with it that you're not doing. My example or my go-to is always taking notes. I've kind of found both of these apps to work code like side by side. I could almost I'll put my 4, and then I'll talk about where I'm transitioning into with this. There is Google Keep, which has replaced Evernote for me personally. There's Notion, which Notion has been a godsend based on having different templates. I've been introduced to different writing options. I just got introduced to a term called interstitial journaling. Jot down, so I'm going to read what it says. Jot down short journal entries during work breaks in Notion. This minimal approach to journaling through a combination of to-do lists, links, ideas, reflections, and mood tracking is a great way to journal on the go. And they gave an example of a style for doing it. And what I've been basically doing is tasks that I've needed to work on, I've journaled about those tasks and why they got done or why they didn't get done. So I have those two, the traditional Apple Notes. If you use Google, the default note-taking app for that. And the fourth one, which it's useful, but it's tricky, is Sticky Notes. And this is on any phone or any computer. On Mac, they have an app called Sticky Notes, and then on Mac it's called Stickies. On Android, it's likely going to be they have a sticky note type app, but on Windows it's called Sticky Notes. Anyone who's used a Windows computer, Windows 8 or higher, if you go to start and go to Sticky Note or type in the word Sticky Notes, you'll see what I'm referring to. The advantages of the biggest advantage of Sticky Notes, and I'm sorry, let me backtrack. Sticky Notes also goes back, I believe, on Windows 7 as well. The convenience of using Sticky Notes is the simple fact that if you close your computer down or restart your computer or whatever, the next day, whatever notes you took on that Sticky Note program are going to be there when you come back. So it's not like you're going to lose the information. It's basically a lighter version of OneNote. And OneNote is another app that a lot of people use. So I'm going off on a tangent about that, but I'm gonna reel it back to what I've been doing or what I'm starting to give a try or recircle back to doing again, and that is traditional pen and paper. I found a video. Guy was talking about how you can pretty much for less than $3 start note taking and getting back to the traditional form of note taking. And what that looks like is at Dollar General, at pretty much any Dollar General, they have a 3-pack of mini composition notebooks. They're a small composition notebook. And I went in and I happened to get, I think, 3 sets of them. And then I have, what else do I have? And then I have I went ahead and got an ink pen. So getting the 3 pack of notebooks as well as the pen, you're paying less than $3. Now, of course, in some instances, you're probably like, well, Brian, you don't really need a pen if you got a bunch of pens already. And if you've already got a pen, there's no need reinventing the wheel to buy another ink pen, unless you just want a pen dedicated to that specific task. And by the way, I don't have it with me, but there is a pen that I am using, and I actually do have it with me. There's a specific pen that I use that I thought I would like, and I don't like it. And I'm going to, if you choose to use it, use it. I will say use at your own risk. It is not the most enjoyable. It is the Pilot Fizion or Friction. I guess it's Friction. Pilot Friction ball. It is a erasable pen. It is not the best pen. Not even just taking out the erasable part of it alone. Just writing with it in general is just, it's not it. I know what the concept is that they're trying to go for, but I'll be 100% honest. Erasable pens have never really done it, even when they've tried to do it. And even more stranger, the eraser is like integrated into the back of the pen. So if you take the top off, you can put it on the back of the pen, but then you're ending up covering the eraser if you needed to use it. So it's like kind of like 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. But yeah, they have like inexpensive pens at Dollar General you can get, or if you want to, like I said, if you want to switch it up, turn it up a notch. I always tell people I personally have become attached to the Pilot. It's a group of pens now because there's so many different ones that have pulled me in. The Pilot S Gel, I bought a pack of those a while back. They're pretty worthwhile. It's in my opinion a solid investment. There's also another group of Pilot pens, the G2s. Most people have used those before. If you're a pen user, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm on a pen tangent. So if this ain't exciting or ravishing, I apologize, but it is what it is. But yeah, you want to get like a good pen and a good notebook combination. So that's one option if you're not trying to spend anything. Like I said, if you're in Dollar General and you want to get the package and keep it moving, that would be your first option. The second option, which I have been an advocate of this company probably for, Lord, I would almost say the duration of this podcast, because I will honestly say I tried to get a sponsorship for the podcast from them. And they kind of gave me the breakdown of how it works. And I was like, no thanks, I'm good. It's funny that my phone is on Do Not Disturb, but still that call came through. Lesson learned, but we got that straight. Anyway, yeah, so Moleskine is the other company. And some people may say Moleskine, or I know it is Moleskine. And it's Moleskine. I want to say I have 2 of their books with me now. I have one that I keep in my, pretty much like I haven't. So if any of you have heard me talk about it before, I have like an iPad carrying case that obviously you have the iPad itself. It's in its own personal case with a keyboard, probably the best keyboard in my opinion. Keyboard and mouse. It's actually like a cool keyboard mouse combination. But then in that, like, I sit it in an actual accessory that is like almost like a little mini briefcase just for the iPad. Like if I needed to get online and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like getting my entire laptop out to get online, I can just use the iPad and I can carry it in this accessory. It has, I have my aux cord, I have my USB-C to aux, I have my USB-C to HDMI. I have all the accessories I need to pretty much function on the go, which not everyone can honestly say, but I digress. But yeah, the Moleskine, also within that packet, I have this pen that I just talked about, the Friction, which I'm probably going to switch out. And I have a briefly used probably barely used Moleskine notebook. So usually if you get them, they'll usually be called like Cahir's. You'll see them called Cahir's book or Cashier. They're supposed to be Cashier's books, but they're little small books. They have them in different. They have ones that are like a pretty thick size with like a hardback. They have the paperbacks. They have a smaller version. The smaller ones I think are the probably most underrated ones because they're very convenient and just like, hey, I need to jot a quick note down, and you can kind of go on about your way. The turning point of it is the pricing. For a lot of people, it's like, I don't think it's worth what you pay for it, but it all comes down to preference. If you like what you like, it's going to benefit for what you like. That's the easiest way to describe it, right? So if it's for you and for your lane or your bag of how you want to notate, get one. I used to, at one point when I was going to church a lot, when I would go to church regularly, I did have a notebook of like a Moleskine notebook, actually like a larger, kind of like a journal type Moleskine notebook. And I took notes from service. So it was very good for that by far. And I like, even if the ones that I have now, I could still do the same thing. But they, like I said, you'll find them at Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble. Barnes and Noble, you're gonna pay a little bit more. This is a random recommendation. So there's a store here called Plaza Art. If you go there, you can get a pack of them. They have different sizes and different variations of the books. I think that's like a humongous game changer. Why I've really like stuck with using them. Also, any store that's local for you that sells those type of notebooks, I would go there and kind of see what their prices are as well. And like I said, as far as an ink pen, Office Depot / Office Max, Staples, the Tool brand, the Staples brand. Don't sleep on the Staples brand. The Staples brand pens like ballpoint and their regular like rollerball type pens are on point. I have a couple that have lasted for quite some time, so it's almost like the age-old phrase: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would definitely make those go-tos. But I'm sharing all that long story less long, basically, as you don't have to be as reliable or as attached to the phone as being an option. If you have the pen and paper, you can just jot a quick note down. Now, I'm going to go back to what I mentioned briefly about the Dollar General version because someone mentioned it to me and I didn't realize it. There's one disadvantage to that book, but I have a counter for that and I'm going to explain that in a second. The disadvantage to it is the pages, at least the first page. Like I wrote some stuff down and I was like, okay, I'm going to open it back up and write something else. That page, it was like it would have been like 4 pages. That set of pages just popped out. And I was like, well, this is no good. Like now, what am I supposed to do? So my counter for that, now this is where the phone comes in. So if you want to get to the tech part of it, then cool, let's play the game. You can get what is called, there's an app called Cam Scanner. I've talked about this on my TikTok page recently, where you basically can, if you're on your, like if you're looking at pages in a book or something, you're like, oh, I want to record these pages and like save it almost similar to a book. You can do that using the Cam Scanner app, and it will scan pretty much page to page until you tell it, okay, I don't need any more pages. Scan, and it will literally generate it in the form of a book style. It is free. It is a convenient app. It's a useful app to convert certain documents into PDF files, or like taking a picture and making it a PDF. And anyone who's misguided or doesn't understand the concept between using different file formats, I will definitely do a podcast. I would love to do a podcast about that because I think a lot of people don't. Like the biggest thing that no one has been told until probably in the last 4 or 5 years is that your resume should be in a PDF format. And the reason why it's important to have it in PDF format, this is a tip that I'm still mind blown by it because I sometimes even forget to do this when I'm submitting my resume. Having your resume in PDF format is a benefit because if you send it to a recruiter or you send it to someone to look at, they can only look at it. They can't edit it. They can't modify anything on that PDF, even if they have Adobe Acrobat Reader. Or I'm sorry, not Reader, but if they have DC Pro, you can't go in and make any changes to that extreme. Plus, it's also, if someone's opening it by default, they're going to open it and it's going to go right to likely the browser version of Adobe unless they've changed that default file type. Again, I'm emphasizing this now. This is probably like that extra level of tech talk that I normally wouldn't do for this type of podcast. But if you want me to talk about file types, JPEGs, GIFs, I know everybody calls them GIFs, but I have a long story that I'll explain about why they're called GIFs. We'll save that. JPEGs, GIFs, bitmaps, SVGs, AI files, Photoshop files, your recording files for podcasts, InDesign. InDesign has its own file type. Knowing the different file types and when to use them and what to use them for. .mov, .mp4. I know, like I said, I'm naming a lot of these right now, but I'm doing this as a teaser, but I'm making it clear as like if any of you need to understand the benefits of which file type to use for what circumstance. But circling back to the original application, Cam Scanner, using Cam Scanner will save a PDF file of your notebook if you don't have it. Another feature, and I need an Android Connect who can do different things for me that can like help with like, hey, try this on your phone to see if it does X, Y, Z. And I know somebody that would do it. I just got to make sure I remind him like, hey, try this out when you get a chance. But Cam Scanner should be a default app on there, but you can also use your Notes app and do the same thing where you take pictures of whatever pages you have, and it'll save it in a note, in one specific note. Before I close, I got one quick update that I want to share because I am a risky beta guy. I'm a beta person or a beta user for iOS or with Apple. And I've been messing around with iOS 16.2 a little earlier than expected. And I will tell you now, any of you who have used different flowchart type applications before, you're going to like the new update. They're introducing a feature or an app called Freeform. It's going to be on your main page by default on your iPad or on your iPhone. Basically what it does is it will allow you to add images or icons of any style and pretty much create a flowchart. The advantage of this is the flowchart can expand as wide as you would like it to with as much real estate as you need to put whatever you need to add on it. And it's a pretty dope feature. I'm still kind of working the kinks out about it and learning how to use it and how it's beneficial. I know for anyone who's doing project management, product management, Scrum, Agile, Jira, those things, it's going to be helpful to you whether you realize it or not. And I had a breakthrough with something else that I just learned, which is anyone who does product management and anyone that's in UX, y'all need to link. You need to connect with those people. Like whichever side of the coin you're on, connect with the opposite. Solely for the fact of how beneficial it becomes in fluidity of design. And I know I'm going, like I said, this is more of a chill show, but this is more of like a little bit of an extra tech talk that some of you probably are like, well, I don't know what is product management? What's the difference between that and project management? Number one. Number two, what is this UX thing? But basically, UX is user experience. As I always give as an example, everyone shops on any app that's out there. I could name the big boxes, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to. However, when you go to those apps and you purchase products, when you're selecting things to put in your cart for things to do what they need to do, you get the visual aesthetic, which is great. But if you tell a big box company to put a microphone in your shopping cart and you want to put two of those microphones, it needs to be able to do that on the back end behind the scenes. You don't see that as a person who's using the application. You don't see it on the front end. You're not going to notice that as a user. All you looked at was, I put two items in my cart and it should show me two items. And I need to know when it's shipped, and I need to know how much it's going to cost. I need to know how much it's going to be with tax. I need to know if I'm paying shipping, et cetera, et cetera. So those things are important. Why that's important to tie that in with product management or product managers is because product managers are about research and development, as far as I'm aware. Now, I'm not going to sit here and paraphrase and make it like I know everything A to Z about it, but the main basis is they're going to look at, okay, this app is doing something, but it's not doing what you need it to do. What can be done behind the scenes to make the app run more fluid? An example somebody gave that I never paid any attention to is certain users, if you're placed or set as close friends with them, if you're using Instagram, when you scroll on their page, you're going to see the green circle. Now, you want to look at those green circles more than you want to look at your regular, typical stories, because those are people, one, that have made you a close friend to them. And two, you want to see if it's something extra special that no one else has access to already. So things like that are cool, and it's fun to like learn and get a feel for. So I enjoy like learning and getting a feel of that connection. So if you are a user experience person in software engineering and even user interface, and you know someone that's a product manager, talk their head off. And product managers should be talking to UX people to get their perspective of designing and simplicity in design. So I wanted to put that on the table before we do our pass the message and wrap it up. Pass the message. I know all the time I'm always talking about be accountable and how you got to hold up to your responsibilities. And if you did something, say you did it, or whatever the case may be. The message today, because I witnessed it, and I'm not going to go into details out of respect and just out of the natural routine, is don't let what you're using affect you from what you're trying to get done. Don't let what you're using affect you from what you're trying to get done. You have resources for where you are and what you do. If you're not using those resources properly, it can come back and haunt you. I'm not going to give, like I said, I'm not going to give too many details or specs because I know who listens to my show, but I also don't want to tell too much without telling too much. But I will say this. If you are, how can I put this? If information is provided to you or shared to you early on, someone shared that information with you for a reason. I personally can recall sharing information and telling someone not to do this thing. And I'm trying not to talk about it too much because I don't want it to be subliminal, but I also know, like I said, I know people listen to my show. But I'm saying it as I give information to people for a reason. And it's not me giving information from experience. It's me giving information projecting and being aware. And that information was provided, but it wasn't taken heed to. And in the process, it caused changes to be made. The changes were very unexpected and very blindsided, which happens. But just being aware goes a long way. For instance, I have been doing podcasts I've been doing podcasts about 6 or 7 years, give or take. Even with me being as comfortable with doing podcasts as I am, like right now, I'm going to be 100% honest. How I have my computer set up today, I normally would not have it set up. Meaning, I would not have a lot of the applications open that I normally would have, that I have open. Like Microsoft Word should not be running on my computer right now. I know that for a fact. I know that for a fact. But I think because I was so gun-ho to just be like, all right, let me just record a show, I recorded a show. And I'm realizing the magnitude of that because when you are running things or not realizing the importance of running things, it can show in what you're doing. Let me get more insight as to what I mean. So anytime anyone who knows me, anyone that's sat with me and seen me do podcasting, my main application or the main program I run is Adobe Audition. My number one concern with my podcast, which I have always told people, anyone that records a podcast, I give this as a public tip on the podcast frequently and often. Always pay attention to your audio feedback. The reason why it's important to pay attention to your audio feedback is because you want to make sure, personally, I'm always, because I've recorded so long, I'm always making sure that I hit the sweet spot. Where I'm sitting from my microphone, I can slide further back away and I still can be heard good enough. And I'm still seeing the levels of my podcast. Now, if I get too close to the microphone, then the audio changes. I can hear the audio changing. I can see, because it's a large space of green, a little sliver of yellow, and there's that red that you just don't want to get to. Because sometimes when you're talking to people, and I'm going to be preparing my brethren when we have our men's year review podcast, that we can be loud unintentionally. And we have to remember that we're going to be heard, and we don't have to make a scene with talking. And I've learned that over time with doing podcasts. I say that and I bring that up because if I'm not seeing these levels moving like they're supposed to, I'm going to have concern with the podcast being recorded. That's number one. Number two, and I've had this happen, I've started the process of recording the show. I look, everything seems to be running okay. All is good. It seems fine on the surface, but then when I go back and play it, I get these little just straight lines. And it's like either there's no audio there or it's just static, something that just is not something I would normally be accustomed to having on a podcast. I state that, I circle it back to the initial thought that I shared, because being aware is important to knowing how to process what you're doing. And if you're not paying attention, you can get laxed, you can get lazy, you can become nonchalant, you can become unbothered, and it's going to show in your productivity. And you don't want that to show in your productivity, because if someone has that, then they can say, oh, he's the guy that when he records podcasts, he don't pay attention to anything, he just talks. And for the longest time when I first did podcasts, I would always tell people also, go back and listen to the show, because you want to make sure everything sounds like what it's supposed to sound like. And most importantly, nothing was said that, I want to say incriminate, but you don't want to have anything said that you might not want shared publicly, because sometimes we function like that. But I say all of that just to share with you all, just be aware. In the words of the Roots, you stuck on Sneak, get on your P's and Q's, because you will get cut with no discrep. We know the blow to keep the flows in check. I'm probably messing up the last part, but you want to stay on your P's and Q's, because if you don't, somebody's waiting for you to drop the ball and just trick it up. There's always someone preying on your downfall, even if you don't think they are. Just be aware of that. And that's the message I'm leaving with y'all today. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. We got more in store. I'm in limbo I'm gonna say this now and it's kind of ironic because soccer just started. I want to get into some soccer talk. I also am supposed to be a guest on his show. I'm gonna talk with him to see if I'm able to use his audio. We'll talk about that when I get to that point. But I'm also trying to like get my energy together because I know I'm gonna need it for this year. This year in review podcast. Don't get me wrong, I've done some great year in review podcasts. Like, even with things being where they are with the person who I don't talk about much, but the person who I had on my podcast for the year in review last year, that was one of my favorite. Like, it was a good show. It's different when things have changed of not being able to do those shows, but you digress. But I'm really excited about this one because it's literally one of the few times that I've had more than two men be on my podcast. My personal podcast. Like, I've had people, like, I've been a guest on shows where there were multiple men, all well and good. But being able to do a all men's podcast has been like the dream du jour for me personally. So stay on the lookout for that. Like I said, I may do a surprise podcast about the World Cup. I just got to see how I'm feeling. But in the meantime, in between time, y'all take care. Y'all stay blessed. Keep it positive. And most importantly, protect your peace. Y'all have a good one. Well, that was definitely a fun show. I hope you all learned something. I hope you all gained some information either about myself or about yourselves, because I know with the message that's passed along, it's usually meant to do a little bit of reflection, maybe some shadow work, not sure, all about your niche or lane. But I want to take time and utilize this section to share. Thank you to anyone who has taken time to listen to the show, to subscribe to the show, to leave any comment, to leave any feedback. If you want to leave any information, the pastbtpod@gmail.com. Podcasts are uploaded using Buzzsprout, probably one of my favorite platforms to be on. And to all my artists, if you know that you have a gift, share that gift with the rest of us because we're waiting. Until next time, this is the Past signing out. Peace.